The static crackles. Then a voice cuts through the interference. Laws were written to protect us, but what happens when they shatter? Above, the sky does not just darken, it fractures. A sound like 1,000 panes of glass shattering at once tears through the air. Lynn looks up as the horizon splinters, jagged cracks spreading across the heavens. The ground beneath her feet heaves, pitching violently to the left. She loses her balance, slamming her shoulder against a floating slab of stone. Around her, the void is no longer empty. Clocks, once suspended in the stillness, begin to detonate. Metal casings buckle and burst, sending a shrapnel storm of gears and springs raining down. Lynn hunches over, shielding her face with her forearms as debris strikes the ground with the force of bullets. She tries to run, but the path ahead folds in on itself, turning into a vertical wall of shifting geometry. Every step she takes feels like walking on shifting sand. The air vibrates with a low, rhythmic thrumming. She is trapped in a collapsing architecture. Lynn pressed her back against a jagged pillar, gasping for air as the debris storm subsided. She squinted through the haze of floating dust. A sudden pulse of white light erupted a few feet away. Mimi appeared, but she was wrong. Her body stuttered, snapping back and forth between positions like a corrupted video file. One moment she was reaching out. The next, she was a translucent blur of static. Lynn lunged forward, fingers outstretched, but her hand passed through empty air as if Mimi were made of smoke. Mimi's face twisted in a painful flicker. She gasped, her voice sounding like two radio stations overlapping. "Lynn, stop. You broke the timeline." Lynn recoiled, shaking her head violently. "I only pressed the watch!" she shouted, her voice cracking. Mimi's image stabilized for a heartbeat, her eyes wide and fixed on Lynn. "You pressed it too many times." Above them, the sky tore open with a sound like tearing wet parchment. A void of swirling, bruised shadows poured through the breach, swallowing the remaining light. From the heart of that darkness, shapes began to coalesce. They were not human, nor were they solid. Faceless entities emerged, their forms shifting like liquid smoke, limbs elongating and retracting with every movement. They drifted forward, ignoring the laws of gravity, their presence sucking the warmth from the air. Lynn watched, paralyzed, as the entities reached out with fingers that frayed into wisps of dark vapor. Mimi pointed toward the encroaching shadows, her hand trembling. "The balance is gone. Everything is collapsing." Lynn looked at the entities, then back at Mimi, searching for a flaw in the logic. "We have to fix it," she pleaded, her voice barely audible over the low, rhythmic thrumming of the void. Mimi shook her head slowly, her expression hardening into a final, grim resolve. "There is no repair. Not unless everyone who used the watch ceases to exist." The weight of the words hit Lynn like a physical blow. The ground beneath them began to dissolve into nothingness, turning to gray dust that drifted into the abyss. The entities lunged, their screeching sounds vibrating through the very air, closing the distance with terrifying speed. Mimi lunged, her fingers locking around Lynn's wrist with a grip like iron. "Run!" she commanded, pulling Lynn forward just as the floor beneath them disintegrated into a swirling vortex of nothingness. They sprinted across a narrow, buckling strip of reality. Around them, the air was thick with lethal shards of time, jagged, translucent blades that sliced through the atmosphere with a high-pitched, crystalline ring. Lynn ducked, the wind of a passing shard whipping her hair as it carved a deep gouge into the void beside her. The screeching of the faceless entities intensified. They were gaining, their elongated, smoky limbs sweeping through the space behind them. Ahead, a massive, pulsating clock manifested, its surface covered in deep, glowing fissures that bled light. Hundreds of eyes were embedded in its frame. Mimi skidded to a halt. "There is one way, but it is lethal," she gasped. "We must shatter the watch from the inside." The screeching behind them reached a deafening pitch as the entities crested the edge of the platform. Mimi did not hesitate. She slammed her palms against the cold, metallic surface of the gargantuan clock. Lynn followed, placing her hands firmly over Mimi's, their fingers locking against the ticking mechanism. The surface hummed with a violent, rhythmic vibration that traveled up their arms. They turned to face each other, their eyes locked in a final, silent exchange. The chaos of the collapsing universe flickered in their pupils. The entities lunged, their smoky limbs mere inches away, but the clock responded first. A deep, resonant pulse shuddered through the void. As the light reached its peak, the ticking stopped. The void dissolved, leaving nothing but the glow.